This skill is called Unseen Strike, which I have to admit is perhaps not the best name for it. Today we're looking at Guitaraholic's Hidden Blade Ascendant, which automatically churns out projectiles to build fat stacks of corrupting blood. Welcome to Build of the Week. I'm Evan from Grinding Gear Games. Unseen Strike is a skill unique to the Hidden Blade Dagger. It fires blades twice a second so long as we're phasing, which, by the way, is a handy buff that lets us walk through enemies. To achieve permanent phasing, we're using the Ascendant's Raider passive. However, Guitaraholic isn't trying to scale the damage of Unseen Strike. Instead, the goal is to apply stacks of corrupting blood with the projectiles. Once set up, this build is very automated, and Guitaraholic has likened it to Vampire Survivors. You can just run around, watch the blades fly, and collect loot. First things first, projectile spam. Corrupting Fever is a buff that allows our hits to apply corrupting blood, a debuff that deals physical damage over time and is the bread and butter of the build. This can stack on each enemy up to 10 times, so we'll need to fire plenty of projectiles to build up those stacks. Unseen Strike launches a single projectile at enemies which deals weapon damage. We also use the Greater Volley and Greater Multiple Projectile supports to bring the total number of projectiles to 9. Now there's some nuance in this next part. Normally, the skill would fire in a circle, but Greater Volley fires the projectiles from 9 separate points along a line. So instead of firing a circle of 9 projectiles, it fires 9 circles of 1 projectile. And firing just 1 projectile in a circle is the same thing as firing it forwards. These details are useful for build creators, but all you have to know is that Guitaraholic's setup lets us fire projectiles in one direction, allowing for more consistent, more directed damage. We can then slap on the returning projectile support for even more nonsense. Has the word projectiles lost its meaning yet? Projectiles, projectiles, projectiles. I'm just going to call them blades now. An Eldritch Implicit on our gloves allows the blades to pierce a target, and the returning blades pierce all targets. So we stack up corrupting blood on enemies pretty quickly. And luckily for us, the damage reducing downside on these support gems doesn't affect the damage of corrupting blood. All we have to do now is juice up our projectile speed and damage over time. A lot of our scaling comes from simply increasing gem levels from uniques like Skin of the Lords, Cold Iron Point, and a few other +1s from other sources. Guitaraholic has managed to get Corrupting Fever to level 33. Otherwise, investment in Ascendancies, our passive tree, especially some choice cluster jewels, and a healthy aura stack help our physical damage even more. For smooth gameplay, we ideally want to maintain the Corrupting Fever buff for as long as possible before having to recast it. To do this, Corrupting Fever allows us to refresh its duration as long as we spend almost 400 life every 7 seconds. Guitaraholic has achieved this by using Life Tap, the support gem that causes skills to spend life rather than mana. In this build, our life spenders are Flame Dash, the Vulnerability Curse, and Reap. Speaking of Reap, the single target damage from Corrupting Fever is limited, so Guitaraholic is running Reap and Val Reap to deal with stronger nuisances. Both Corrupting Blood and Reap deal physical damage over time, so both can be scaled in the same way. Plus, the Giant Scythe just feels appropriate on this build. On the outside, we have crunchy blade spam, and within, a squishy center. How does Guitaraholic stay alive? Let's talk armor. Guitaraholic has achieved at least 46,000 armor without a Granite Flask up. Most of this comes from Determination, an aura that grants armor. In this case, that aura is especially powerful thanks to Guitaraholic's gem level stacking efforts. Otherwise, we're investing in armor on our tree and gear where we can. For smooth mapping, Guitaraholic is using Death Rush, a ring which grants life recovery and adrenaline. This buff increases our damage, but also provides damage reduction and movement speed to help us outrun our problems. Lastly, we should mention Storm Shroud. This unique jewel makes it so that our chance to avoid being shocked can be turned into a chance to avoid all elemental ailments. Thanks to these crafty booties and a well-rolled Abyss Jewel, Guitaraholic has achieved 100% ailment immunity. Although this build is visually wild, it's straightforward and elegant in its execution. It's rare that we get something that looks so crazy, but is relatively simple to understand, so commendations to Guitaraholic. If you're worried about the noisy idle this build has in hideouts, the author notes that you can use a weapon swap for some blessed silence while you're just standing around. Thanks to Guitaraholic for their contribution. Be sure to check out their forum guide in the link below. If you'd like to look like the Blade Lord you are meant to be, here's our recommended microtransaction setup. See you next time. Hey, since you stayed to the end, this is what the build looks like if we cheat the game to activate Hidden Blade 20 times a second. Turns out it's called Unseen Strike because you can't see anything else. Yeah.